I'm Greg. I'm the Introverted Networker. This is my monthly office hours that I have started doing here. And yeah, sure, that's fine. If you can't turn on video, that's no problem. But yeah, so I do these once a month and basically open up the time for people to kind of come in and ask me their questions about networking or anything else that they're maybe struggling with, possibly in a job search. Again, my focus is mostly on networking, but here to just kind of answer questions as you have them. Feel free to ask whatever it is that's on your mind. It usually helps, I think, if you ask it, but if you can't get off a mute and you just want to ask in the chat, you can certainly do that as well. So just a little bit more about me for those of you who I may not have met yet or who I don't know. Again, my name is Greg. I post on LinkedIn every day about networking. Call myself the Introverted Networker. I have my introverted but willing to network shirt on here. Make sure I can get out from behind the microphone there. And I also run the Introverted Networker newsletter, which is a weekly newsletter. Some of you may or may not subscribe to that. And I'm launching the Connection Lab community, which is an online community where people can get together and practice and learn to become more confident networkers. So like I said, like to do this to kind of hear what people are challenged with, what they're struggling with, what their questions are, try to answer those for people. So with that, who's got a question that they want to jump in and be the first person to go? And just come off a mute and hop in there. Nobody's got a question. You guys just want to show up and see what everybody else asked.
No, I'll ask a question.
Okay, real quick. So I can see your screen name, but just tell us your first name.
I'm sorry, Connie.
Connie. Okay, Connie,
Yep.
and you're from the Dallas Fort Worth area, it looks like.
Yep. Yes, I am. Yep.
Okay, great. So what's going on?
So just, as far as the networking goes, kind of being an introvert, I struggle with it sometimes and just finding the right way to do it. Even having like a huge friend circle and everything, I don't have that. So it's
Okay.
networking is kind of awkward for me.
Okay. Can I ask a few more questions, kind of
Sure.
understand what
Mhm.
where you're coming from? So,
Mhm.
what are you looking to do with your networking? Are you networking to find different career opportunities or business opportunities, or just to increase the community of people that you can talk to? What's kind of your main goal with networking?
For networking, for me, it's I am looking for a new role because I was laid off, so I'm
Okay.
trying to increase my network for that. And I've actually got some really good connections at some of my target companies.
Okay.
So I think that's a good thing, but just being in the payments industry as well, I'm just kind of trying to grow my network with people that are kind of in that same industry. And I recently joined a professional organization, the Paytech Women.
Mhm.
So hopefully that will help as well to get with other people in the industry and so forth. So,
Okay. And what is it you've been doing to network so far? What's working, what's not working?
so I'll be honest, I was not on LinkedIn until probably a year and a half ago. So
Okay.
I'm new to this.
Hmm.
Um,
Okay.
so to do networking, yeah. I'll reach out to people on LinkedIn. Like I said, have met a lot of great people.
Hmm.
Just through that avenue and some other people in my industry. Reaching out to past colleagues that are no longer with my company. I actually worked at the same company for like 30 years. So the people that I know are people that worked at that company, and a lot of them are still there. So
Hmm.
it's kind of, once again, just kind of awkward for me. And, a lot of people that I would reach out to on LinkedIn, they're not even active on there. So
Hmm.
um,
Yeah.
just kind of struggling with some of that. And I know that's all par for the course, par for what you need to go through in networking. So,
Yeah. Yeah. What have there been certain people you have reached out to that have responded?
oh, absolutely, yes. And those are some of the people that I definitely stay in touch with and
Hmm.
and are at some of my target companies and of course working with um, you know, being in the payments industry and working for the same company that I did, they've been really helpful. If find a job or something, they'll be more than happy to get my resume off to the recruiter and
Hmm.
hiring manager. So I feel like I'm doing all the right things, but
Hmm.
it's still awkward and uncomfortable, I guess.
When you say awkward and uncomfortable, what part of it's awkward and uncomfortable? Are you just asking people to help you, or is it just trying to start the conversations? Like what's because a lot of times when things are awkward and uncomfortable, we those are things we don't do, right? We don't do the awkward and uncomfortable stuff. So just trying to
Hmm.
kind of understand what part of it is awkward and uncomfortable.
Yeah, just like I said, being an introvert. I mean, I've never been one that's if I get with the right group of people, sometimes you can't shut me up. But
Hmm.
it's sometimes that initial outreach, just new to the whole networking thing, and
Okay.
especially in this job market, it's just
Mhm.
such a hot mess right now,
Yeah.
as you know. And I guess just trying to maybe find some other tips, suggestions, and what other things I
Yeah.
might be able to do.
Okay, well, let's start with a couple things that you've said that I
Hmm.
think you're doing well. Number one, you said you have a target company list, so
Hmm.
that's always a really big, important thing, especially when you're searching for a job. When the first time somebody recommended that to me, that was sort of a big aha and really changed a lot of my job search approach. Was when I really got focused on what companies I wanted to learn more about, and maybe I wanted to
Hmm.
work there, maybe I learned about them and I decided I didn't want to work there, but having that formalized list, and do you have an actual list that you could send to people and hand to people, or is it just kind of a list in your head?
I don't know. I got a Google Sheets going. I
Okay.
can't even tell you how many companies I got
Okay.
on there.
But
So
and
probably way more than what I
yeah.
need, but I've kind
Yep.
of narrowed down
Sure.
probably my top 10 that I'd like to check on a regular basis.
Great. Great. I would say get to a point where you feel like it's almost like another, it's not like a resume, but it's like it would be formatted almost as professionally as a resume. And the only reason I say that is you want to be giving that to people. You don't want to
Hmm.
just, keep it in your Google Drive. You want it to get to a point where you feel good about emailing it or handing it to a person that you're talking to. But that's good. I think the other thing you said is you're reaching out to former colleagues that had worked at the same place who have gone on to other jobs, which is great as well, because that's always a good place to start is with those people you know. They know you. They're probably going to respond if you reach out to them. Some may not, like you said, they're not on LinkedIn. And as active. So I don't know if some of those people you have any other way to get in touch with, email or text. Sometimes that's a little bit difficult, but if
Yeah.
there's another way, you might think about doing that. And then when you're reaching out, what are you kind of saying? Like, what's your initial sort of connection message to those people?
If they're former colleagues or peers that I've worked with, I mean, it's just kind of the initial one, hey, it's been a while
Mhm.
and just kind of wanted to reach out and
Mhm.
just kind of give them a little bit of what I've been through over the last couple years. And I don't right out come out and say, hey, do you have any jobs for me, type of a thing.
Sure. Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
try to reconnect with them.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
and if I have applied, it's like, hey, do you know anything about this position? Can you
Mhm.
give me any insights? I'd like to learn more about it and just
Yeah.
kind of see where that goes.
And how does that go for you? Is that working, or are you finding that's not working?
No, that seems to work pretty good.
Yeah.
Even when I reach out to recruiters, I mean,
Yeah.
I've let them know, hey, I found this job. I'd like to learn more about it. If you
Hmm.
got any time for discussions, I would love to have a talk with you
Okay.
and kind of see where it goes.
Okay. And do you, like I said, they seem to respond to that? You get to have conversations out of that, or is it sort of hit and miss?
It's hit or miss, but like
Yeah.
I said, I just think it's
Yeah. Okay.
it's just part of the process.
Sure. Sure. Yeah. And you're totally right. It is part of the process, and it seems like you have a really sort of good, attitude and positive attitude toward it. And
Hmm.
so I guess where I'm trying to kind of understand, like, what is it you feel like's not really getting you where you want to be? Is it just not enough people? Is it things aren't moving fast enough? Because a lot of the things that you just said are things that a lot of people aren't doing, right? And
Okay.
so I think you're doing a lot of good things, a lot of the right things. definitely the approach of, ask for advice, not for a job is a good way to go because it sort of like lowers the risk for the other person. They don't feel like they're going to have to do a lot for you.
Hmm.
When you get into having maybe some of these conversations that are either on the phone or possibly in person, is that kind of where you're running into a little bit of the challenge, or is it, something else?
No, I think that's part of it. I just think, like I said, I've got a decent network. I mean, I'm
Hmm.
up to the tens of thousands by any
Yeah,
means, but
sure.
considering I just joined last year, I'm
Yeah.
happy with it.
Yeah.
But I think getting more people in my network that are
Hmm.
in the payments industry, because I kind of feel like that's a niche type of an
Yeah.
industry versus some others. I mean, yeah, there's a
Yep.
ton of payment processors and banks out there, but it's
Yep.
finding the
Yeah.
right type of role. And I think having joined this organization is
Hmm.
going to help build that network
Right.
with like-minded people. So
Is that an online organization or is it?
it's a little bit of both. They've got like some online webinars that they do. Last night I actually attended an in-person event that was
Hmm.
here in the DFW area. So they got a
Okay.
combination of both, and they got a lot of
Yeah.
good services there as well. I just joined earlier this week, so I don't
Okay.
know everything that they offer
Yeah.
yet. So
Yeah, I mean, I think, anytime you go to the in-person, it's the key is what do you do afterwards, right? So how do you follow up with people? How do you say like, hey, we talked really briefly at the event. Would love to talk to you more. Just kind of get your perspective on this group or this, any advice you might have or what's worked for you. I think the same thing
mhm.
online, right? Is you can engage with look for those companies that are on your list, see who works there that might be posting, and not everybody does, and so there may not be a lot, but if there's people who are posting, engage in the comments, engage with their posts, try to connect with them. Again, try to come at it from the, hey, I'm just trying to learn about this, trying to kind of see what people's perspective are and their advice. What's the one thing you would tell somebody, or what's the one thing you wish you knew, that you could, if you could go back and tell yourself something, what would it be? Right. So it's things like
Yeah.
that, like make it super
Okay.
easy for them to respond. So think
Hmm.
about like what's the easiest way they could answer? Is it like yes, no? Is it like if you were going to do one of these three things, like A, B, or C, which one would you do? Right. And so that kind of makes it really easy for them to respond. It's not a big ask. It's simple, and that usually can start the conversation. And so you can maybe start to connect with a few more people, um, and find some different avenues into these different positions. So, I mean, it sounds like
Okay.
you're doing a lot of the good right things.
Okay.
But I would just it is a bit of a process. You got to be consistent, but I would just keep doing some of that stuff and try to
Okay.
find some new people maybe online through LinkedIn. You don't have to have 10,000 people. You don't have to have a big network. It's just targeting the right people.
Yep.
So
Okay. Perfect.
cool.
Thank you. Appreciate
Yeah.
it.
All right. Who else has a question? Uh, I don't have a good way to order these or whatever, but I mean, Brandon, you've been on. Hazable, you've been on. Shahir, I just saw you jumped on. So Brandon, you got a question for me?
Hey Greg, thanks for
Yeah.
your content. The concept of being an introverted networker really resonates with me, and I find like that's what I struggle with.
Mm-hmm.
I'm always hesitant to reach out to people because I feel like I'm bothering them.
Mm-hmm.
Or I know a concept of networking is like, what can you do? Like, what can you offer the other person, or like kind
Mm-hmm.
of like an even exchange.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess my big challenge is just you know overcoming that
Yeah.
feeling of like being bothersome.
Mm-hmm.
What can I offer other people? And then I guess what cadence do you recommend? So I guess a little bit about me. I'm based in New Jersey.
Mm-hmm.
I work in pharmaceuticals. Pharma's having like massive layoffs across the industry. So it's been a challenge trying
Mm-hmm.
to find new opportunities. My company is like laid off 20% of its workforce. So I know people across the industry, but
Mm-hmm.
just hiring freezes and so on. So I guess anything you recommend to kind of overcome that feeling. I know part of it is just do it, right? Like you just got to get over it and do it. But I'm still just like
Sure.
dragging my feet.
Well,
Dragging.
so you currently in a job, you have a role, but are you looking for a new job?
I'm looking for a new job.
Okay.
I was
Okay.
recently impacted.
Okay. Okay. All right. So let's start with the first one, which is you said you feel like you're bothering people.
Yeah.
Totally normal. Most people feel like that, especially when they're just getting started. One thing I like to try to suggest with that is that usually comes because we've been on the other end of it. So a lot of that feeling comes from you've probably had people reach out to you and say like, "Hey, can you help me find a job?" And you're like, I don't know. I don't have like a list of jobs just sitting here to give to people, right?
Right.
So somebody in the past or more than one person has probably reached out to you and said like, "Hey, could you help me with this?" And you were like, "Wow, that's not something I can help with. I really love to help you, but it seems like it's going to be a lot of work for me." And so that feels like not comfortable, right? That feels awkward to you. And so what you're doing is you're then saying, I'm going to come across the same way to somebody else if I reach out to them, is probably, again, where that mentality is coming from. Um, and that stops a lot of people. And so what I usually try to tell people is think about what you would have rather received. Like what would have made it easier for you to help somebody who reached out to you? Probably if they said something like, "Hey, I'd really just like to get your advice," or "Hey, like I've got a question, you know, I could do," again, going back to what I just told Carol, you could do A, B, or C. Um, you know, what would you recommend, right? And it's also like, who are you reaching out to? So let's think about who you're going to reach out to. What I would always tell people is start with who you know. That's really important because um, they may not be the person that's going to get you the next role, but they may get you to the next person who may help you get the next role. And what you want to do is those people that you've worked with that have maybe moved on to other organizations, other companies that you've worked with in the past, or maybe you know from school or other social organizations, or just people you've connected with. Um, start those conversations again, and that helps because that gives you somebody who already knows you, already kind of trusts you. If you give them a really low sort of risk ask, like, "Hey, haven't talked to you in a long time, would love to reconnect, just kind of find out what's going on with you." A lot of those people will respond. They'll say, "Yeah, like, hey, I'm fine. I'm doing this or that. Here's what's going on with me." And you can be like, "Great. Hey, I'm kind of like in this place where I'm trying to figure out what's next for my career. Do you have 15 minutes? We could get on a phone call and maybe I could, get your perspective on a couple of things."
I
Um,
guess that's part of what I feel bad about. So there's like old colleagues who maybe I haven't spoken to in like
yeah,
5 years.
yeah,
And now it's like, I feel like it's so obvious that I'm reaching out now that I need something or like that I'm looking for a job. So it's like a coworker I haven't talked
yeah,
to in 5 years. And now
yeah,
all of a sudden I'm
yeah,
reaching out, be like, hey, I'm looking for your advice. And it's like, well,
yeah.
why now? It just seems like so
L-
kind of transparent and,
yeah.
uh,
Let me ask you this. Think of one of those colleagues you had from 5 years ago. You could probably think of the name of the person that you might want to reach out to.
yeah.
If the roles were reversed and that person reached out to you and said, "Hey, I've recently been impacted. I would love to just spend 15 minutes kind of, hearing your perspective on this and what you might do," would you feel, would it be awkward to you? Would you feel like they were imposing on you? Would you feel like you don't want to help them?
No, I mean, that's a great perspective. Like, I, you know, the person I'm thinking of or a group of people, if they reached out, I'd actually be happy to hear from them or like happy that they thought of me to,
Yeah, usually.
happy that they
And
thought of
and
me to,
and most people are, right? And
yeah,
and and that's again when I go back to always like switch it around and see how you would feel if you traded places with the person. And if you feel like I'd probably be okay, I wouldn't be a problem, that's a good chance they're going to feel the same way. And again, starting with those people, the risk is going down, right? Because they're like, "Oh yeah, like I haven't talked to Brandon. I'd love to hear what's going on with Brandon," and you're not you're not saying like, "Hey, I got laid off, I need a job," right? You're saying, "Hey, I'm looking at what's next for my career. You're somebody I worked with. I'd like to hear what you've been doing and kind of what if you were in this situation, what you might possibly do." Um, and start it off like that. right? And so they're not going to be like, oh my gosh, Brandon's calling me. He's going to give me like this thing and tell me like, who should I talk to? Like what recruiters, all that stuff. They're going to be like, oh, okay, yeah, I would love to help Brandon. If you make it like 15 minutes or something on the phone, they're like, oh yeah, that's easy. I can find 15 minutes, right? Now it might turn into 30 minutes, it might turn into longer, it might turn into a longer conversation. So you probably again have that list of people you can start with, and that gets you going, right? And then they'll respond and you'll have some of these conversations and you're going to be like, oh, that was a lot easier than I thought it was going to be. That was actually good to catch up with them and find out what they're doing. And those people might have some ideas for you. They might say, you should check into this or you should check into that. And you then want to go do those things, right? You want to take their advice and follow up with them and say, yeah, here's what I did. Here's how that worked out. If they see, okay, this guy's going to do the work, this guy's going to do most of this, he's not going to ask me to do the work, they're going to be, more willing to help you even more. And you want to start getting to, as I was talking with Carol on last, or sorry, not Carol, I keep hearing Connie was our last question. Connie, if you want to get to where she's at with like a target company list, right? Like that's what you want to have so that you can help these people look at it and go, oh, I know somebody who works at this company. I'd be happy to introduce you to them. So you're trying to make it as easy as possible for people to help you, giving them as much information, as much direction and guidance. And they're just the ones who go, oh, I know somebody I can introduce you. That's the end goal of this, right? The starting place where you're at is the initial outreach. What you want to get to is that conversation you have where they're like, yeah, I'd love to help you. You made it really easy. Here's the list of companies. I know somebody here. Let me introduce you, right? And now you're not even the one reaching out. They're going to do the introduction for you. So I think really just, again, flip the script or trade places with the person, put yourself in their shoes, and that might help you get past that feeling of bothering them and make it a little bit easier.
Thank you.
Cool.
I appreciate it.
All right. Shahir, what's up?
Hey Greg, hope you all are doing great. So I do have a question regarding what Brandon asked, something similar like that. And what I usually do is when I'm attending networking events, and most of them I attend online, is the people in the networking events are also looking for opportunities.
Mhm.
They are looking for clients, or they are looking for projects, or they are looking for jobs.
Mhm.
And I'm in the same position just like them. And so when I reach out to them, I don't really get to work with them, just because I mean they are also looking for opportunities themselves. So my question is, how do you find the right people to connect with? And since most of my ICP they are coaches, so how do I find the right coaches to connect with who can turn into my clients or maybe long-term friends? So I mean, what's the process for that?
Okay, so a couple things, and I've heard so in my experience, right, the people who are also looking don't necessarily have to be like your competition, and they don't have to be like, I mean, they can be sort of, I'll say, networking partners or people who might help you connect in other ways. So the people at the events, I think it goes to the same thing that I've told sort of Brandon and Connie is make sure they know what you're looking for, right? And very specifically tell them, hey, you said my ICP, which is great. Are you looking for business leads or are you looking for a job?
Business leads.
Okay, so you're doing this for a business. Okay. So very specific, like what is your ICP? Who is your ICP? One thing I like to say here is what does your ICP and Connie and Brandon, if you don't know, ICP is ideal customer profile, right? So it's like your sort of like avatar of the person your main who becomes your client, right? The main person you want to target. And so what does your ICP say? What words come out of your ICP's mouth that indicates they are your ideal customer? So I'll give you an example. So in addition to the networking stuff I do consulting for human resources and total rewards. So I'm going to use that. So my ICP is usually the head of HR or the CFO or like an executive. What they might say is I don't know if we're paying people in our company competitively. I don't know if we're keeping up with the market. Or they might say something like, we have a lot of turnover and we're not sure why. Like those statements, if somebody says those things, I know that's who I want to be working with. Okay. So I give you that example because what you want to really do is know what those coaches say, what are the words that come out of your mouth, and you want to tell the people at the networking event. If you hear somebody say these words, you think of Shahir and send them my way, right? So what you're doing is you're planting that suggestion in their head and you're associating those phrases with your name. Now, they're going to go out in the world and, they may meet these people, they may not. But if they do hear those words, they'll say, I was talking to Shahir at the networking event. He said, this is exactly the person he's looking for. I need to connect those two, right? So that's, again, from a business perspective, that's a way to get really, really specific on what it is who you're trying to connect with. Because you can say like career coaches, okay, fine. But if I meet a career coach and I know bunches of career coaches, right? I mean, like on LinkedIn and the people that when I post and people comment, they're mostly career coaches. They're people who work in this group, right? And so I could be like, I know a bunch of career coaches, but they all specialize and do different things. And I don't know exactly what they need. But if you told me like, here's what my ideal customer says, and I'm talking to one of them and like, yeah, I really struggle with finding leads, or I really struggle with this part of my business, I could be like, ooh, Shahir says these things. This is what he works on. So I should connect those two. So like, I'm trying to think of an example. So for example, I was talking to somebody who does executive resumes, somebody who does coaching, and she really focuses on getting people's board resumes so they can get on boards, like either nonprofit or for profit. Like she wants to help people get on boards. And so I know the next time I talk to an executive who's like, I'm really interested in board positions, I can say, you need to talk to this person because they specialize in this, and I can send them her way, right? So back to whatever it is you're working on, when you've got to get really specific. You've got to be so specific that people go, I'm going to remember that, and I'll know exactly who to send that person to. So that's one thing I would say for like the networking events. If you're vague and you're too broad, people are like, okay, sounds good, but I don't know anybody like that. So that's one way. I would say the other thing is, as you're, going through your process and you're meeting with prospects and stuff, it's like, of course, like who else might have this issue that you know of, right? Who else? This is more sort of around business, intake and the initial consultation call and sort of informational call. But that's, again, really getting to those specifics helps you put it in other people's heads so that they know to send people to you. I don't know if that helps or not, if that's helpful.
Yeah, definitely. It really helps. Thank you so much.
Okay. All right. Sarah Allen, I see you joined the call, but you're not on camera. And Sarah and I have interacted bunches on LinkedIn. So I'm curious, Sarah, do you have any questions for me? And you could just come off mute if you don't want to do the camera.
Sorry. I was eating and then my husband was trying to get my attention. Yeah, we have interacted a lot. And I've just been listening this whole time to the questions that other people are having. For me, I think the big question is, because you espouse a lot of networking, like not event networking, but you like to say, well, you can do this easily online and you don't always do events and things like that. I'm a very events focused networker, but I find that it's easy to run myself on empty, and then I feel like I'm not like showing up the way that I want to be. Do you have any advice for that to sort of kind of save yourself, or how you prioritize yourself to make yourself, enjoy the experience? You're fresh, you're making authentic connections.
Yeah, I try not to book a lot of networking events. I will do them from time to time, because sometimes that's a good way to just start those initial conversations. I have to give myself space on the back end. Like if I go to a networking event on a Thursday night, I know Friday's going to be pretty non-people-y for me. Like I'm going to need to spend most of Friday doing non-people stuff just because I gotta recharge, right? I can't. And I find that age makes this even worse. I found the older I get, the longer my recovery period takes. So I think for people like if I go into a networking event, I try to do a lot of work up front, meaning I try to make sure I can try to find out who else is going to be there. Do I already know some of those people that are going to be there? When I go, I want to have a really specific purpose or outcome I'm trying to get. Like I want to meet a certain person or a certain kind of person. I really want to make sure I've got a goal other than just walking around and meeting people. Because if I go in with that and I'm not focused, I will just wander around and find a corner to stand in and hope somebody talks to me. And then I'm like, that really wasn't worth my time. So I try to get really specific on who am I trying to meet. I while I and this doesn't sound like a really introverted thing to do, but when I do go to networking events, I try to do something to stand out, meaning I wear something. I have my shirt on. I don't know if you saw it. It's like introverted but willing to network. Introverted but willing to network. I actually wear this shirt to networking events because people will come up to me and be like, "Oh, that's a cool shirt." And so like, okay, now we start talking. I've got some other clothes that I wear. Sometimes I make my name tag look totally different than anybody else's. I'm just trying to do anything to like make it easier for people to talk to me because I'm really bad at breaking the ice and talking to other people. And um, so those are some things I try to do to make the networking event the most impactful or the best return on my time that I can. I will also, obviously follow up is important. So those are like, I would say revolutionary ideas when it comes to networking events, but those are some of the things I really try to do. Also, I would say, even if you're somebody who really focuses on events, there's not events every day. There's not events every week. There might be a couple a month. That's why I would say, even if you like events, all the stuff of connecting like online, having the conversations, having the phone conversations or the voice to voice conversations, those all help in between the events. So you can network as much or as little as you want, but you can also do it on your own schedule, in your own space, whether you like to do it online or in person or and with your own style. Like, do you like to have one-on-one conversations? Do you like to be in a group of people with an online group? You can do it however you want. If you are sort of thinking about, okay, who do I really want to connect with? How do I get in touch with them online? How do we move this to a voice-to-voice conversation? What am I doing in that conversation to listen to what they're saying, really listen to them and then help them out? Like, how do I help them? And then when they say, this has been awesome, how can I help you? You've got to be, again, very specific. Like I was telling Shahir, very specific words that you would say, this is what my customer says. Or when I was telling Connie, like very specific things like, here's the list of companies I want to work at. Like the more specific you can get, the easier it is for people to help you. And then they introduce you to the next person and you can just continue the loop. So I would say you can do all that stuff in between events. You can do it with the people you met at the events. You can use this all together. It doesn't have to be one or the other. My big thing is just, I try to maybe go to a few events a year just because I can't, it's just not my thing. I'm not good. My energy, like you said, the battery just gets low and it just doesn't feel like the best return. So does that help a little, or do you have, is there other things about it that
No, and it's funny that you mentioned like you try to wear something or have something like a point of conversation because like I did that recently and it's really helpful. But I will kind of go up and just talk to people. Like I don't mind too much.
Yeah.
But I mean I always like hearing a different perspective, and that's kind of why I'm in this chat to begin.
Yeah. Some people have no problem with it. Look, I live in a house. I've got I'm married, I've got 2 kids. My wife and my son will go up and talk to anybody. Complete extroverts, no problem, just super outgoing, right? Like my son literally does door-to-door sales in the summertime. He's in college, but he's a door-to-door salesman, and he goes from knock to close in the same visit. It doesn't bother him. He can do that. I would never do that. I tried it once in my career. It was a disaster. And so just because that's not my thing, my daughter and I are the total introverts. We just would rather sit and listen and not talk. And that doesn't mean we don't like people, because I like people. I like talking to people. I like having conversations with people. I like having relationships with people. But it is not, it takes a lot out of me, and it's a lot of energy, and it's not sort of my sweet spot, I would say. But I can get on a conversation like this and talk to you guys for 45 minutes to an hour, and it's no problem, right? So it's that for me, it's that like ice breaking, that initial conversation. And Brandon, I know I told you this, and I should probably follow my own advice, right? Which is like put myself in the other person's shoes. It doesn't bother me if somebody comes and walks up to me at an event, starts talking to me. So why should I have that sort of mental barrier of doing the same thing? But I feel like I struggle with that. So, Brandon, I probably need to take my own advice there, because, that's what I told you to do. And, I always try to work on it. I mean, I'm not saying I'll never do it, but it's just not where I feel most comfortable.
I feel like that's being an introvert, right? It's just not what we excel at, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Or it takes a lot of energy, like you were kind of alluding to. And so we can do it, but it's really tiresome.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, all right. Well, like going through this, like, did this like spur on any other questions for you guys? Anything else that's coming up for you?
I do have another question. It was something that Sarah had mentioned.
Okay.
Those meaningful connections. I mean, I've got about 1,300 connections. It's not a lot, but it's like I think to myself sometimes, how many of those people do I actually interact with?
Mm-hmm.
And I know it's just a number. I know a lot of people love having a lot of connections, having a lot of followers, but I'm not a social media
Mm-hmm.
person. I've got
Yeah.
Facebook, and that's the only other one I got. And I'm usually out there just looking at everybody else's stuff,
Yeah.
So, and I'm probably just thinking about that wrong as far as LinkedIn goes. That okay, I've got 1,300 connections. How many of those do I actually interact with? And I'm just, I don't know. I guess it's just not fitting in my head right.
Well, you don't need to have a lot of people in your LinkedIn connections. I think you're thinking about it absolutely the right way. And that the
Okay.
right way being that what are the meaningful connections of the people in your life that you're going to talk to and connect with, and who can connect you with other people? Because what you need to think about is like, who's that circle of people that you really do talk to? That circle doesn't have to be more than a few dozen people. And maybe it's only a couple dozen, maybe it's only a dozen, right?
Okay.
But what you're trying to do is let them know who else you're looking to meet, because they have their own circle of people. And so what you want to do is intersect, and you don't need to meet every person in their circle, right? But let's just use the number 10, right? Let's say you have 10 people you've connected with, you've talked to, they know exactly kind of what you're looking for or what kind of people you want to connect with. There's probably somebody in their group of 10. You don't have to meet all 10 of them, right? You don't have to make it 20 people, right? And if you had 10 times 10, that'd be 100 people. That's not a stretch to think that probably exists. And you could probably, within 100 people, there's a good chance one of those people is a person that can help you. So don't think of it like you need to amass this huge network of people and have, surface level connections. Think of it like, I need to have good conversations and relationships with the people that I have. I need to let them know who I'm looking to meet, and then they'll connect me and introduce me. And then maybe that person becomes a part of your circle. So I would say, LinkedIn is a good way to kind of find those people who maybe are talking about the same things you're talking about interesting topics, talking about your industry, and maybe you start to have a conversation and they become a connection. But you don't have to be friends with all 1,300 people. And so I would not even try, right? You're not running a business. And so the people who have massive numbers of connections on LinkedIn are often trying to run a business, meaning they're trying to get people to see their posts, engage with their posts, follow and get into their products and things like that. that's more why those people have big followings, unless they're famous and everybody wants to follow and see what they say.
Yeah.
So you're using it for a different purpose. So I wouldn't get focused on the numbers, but I would use it to try to find those other people who have interest in common and are people that you would like to talk to, not just to find your next job, but let's say you're in the payments industry, you want to stay in the payments industry. It's a good place to like share or understand what other people are doing, increase your knowledge about what's going on in the industry, kind of know what the trends are and stuff like that. So it doesn't have to just be find a job and never use it again. It's like, and if you're interested, you start to, comment, you start to say, within reason, you're not going to share any company secrets, but you start to say like, here's what we're doing. Here's what I've learned. Here's what I can teach you. And then, again, you just kind of continue to grow that sort of online following. But as far as what you're trying to do, I would really focus on your key connections and allowing them to introduce you to people and help you grow that way.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Cool. Any other questions?
I have another one for you, Greg. So
Yeah.
I reached out to a former colleague who's at a different company now, an executive.
Mhm.
He actually referred me to a job, and then nothing came of that role. I just haven't heard back.
Mhm.
What sort of cadence do you recommend for like keeping in touch with people? And again, that goes back to my previous kind of
Yes.
comment.
Yeah, I didn't answer that one for you. Sorry.
Yeah. No, I was gonna say just that I feel like
Yeah.
I'm bothering people, right? So I actually had a good conversation with him. He made a referral, and now it's like now what?
Okay. So that's great. I think that's great. Now, when you say he made a referral, did he introduce you to somebody else, or did he just send your resume to somebody and say like, talk to Brandon?
So I applied to a job, and he sent my resume to the hiring manager.
Okay.
I didn't like. It's a big company, so I didn't actually meet the next person.
Yeah.
But he sent it to the hiring manager as like an internal kind of like you should talk to him or at least consider his resume.
And you haven't heard anything from the hiring manager?
No.
How long has it been?
It's been a couple weeks. At this point, I'm thinking like nothing's going to happen from that, but I wanted to like keep that connection alive and thank him obviously for thinking of me, helping me out.
Yeah. So in a case like that, I would say he took an action for you, and he's thinking, okay, I've helped Brandon out, right? Something will happen or won't happen. You could probably follow up, I would say, if it's been a few weeks, and just say like, hey, I just want to follow up and thank you for referring me. I haven't actually heard from that hiring manager, so I don't know if they're busy or if the position's on hold or anything like that. But I just wanted to, let you know and give you an update on that. But again, really appreciate you kind of reaching out. Now, reaching out on my behalf or referring me. I think, a couple things might happen. He might go like, oh, wow, that's weird. I don't know why they didn't call you. Let me follow up. He might. Or he might be like, yeah, I heard they were doing something else with the position, and you're still like, thanks. Maybe you could be like, if you're feeling like it, and depending on how you feel, you could be like, I haven't heard anything. Would it be better if I just connected with the hiring manager directly? And he might be like, yeah, sure. Just, I don't know if you know who the hiring manager is or if you have their information.
I don't know. Otherwise, I would have just reached out.
Yeah.
It's a massive pharmaceutical company. So when I was talking to him, he was like, competition's really stiff.
Yeah.
We normally get thousands of applicants per role.
Mhm.
So he was kind of setting it up, and my expectations were low anyway because it is such a big company.
So what's the downside of you just saying like, hey, I know you said this was going to be really tough. I appreciate you sending it in and the referral. I didn't hear anything back, so maybe they went a different way, but I just wanted to kind of give you an update. I mean, is there any downside to saying that and doing that?
Nope, there's never a downside. Just
and he might be like, yeah, sorry, man, but at least you're following up, right? I think it's always good to circle back and close those loops. You never know. Again, there's no downside. And he might be like, oh, wow, that's weird. I would have thought they would have at least called you. Let me like ping them. Right. Or maybe not. But again, if it's maybe not, that you're in the same place as you are today. Right.
Yeah.
Or, and there's always a slight chance that he's like, oh, wow, that's weird. Yeah, let me check in. So I think again, it's always like, what's the worst thing that could happen? You know, you're not going to be like, hey man, you didn't do anything for me. Thanks, but no thanks. Right. I mean, so you obviously want to keep the relationship, right? And so you're not gonna put him in a position of, wow, Brandon kind of took advantage of me and I don't want to help him in the future. You're going to be like, hey, I'm just following up, letting you know, they probably went a different direction, but I really appreciate the referral. Just want to say thanks again. Keep the relationship, and then, you maybe another opportunity comes up and he's like, oh yeah, this is good for Brandon. The other one didn't work out, but maybe I'll put him in for this. Yeah.
Yeah. Makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
I just gotta get out of my own way, which is the biggest challenge.
Usually, yeah. Always, right? We're always, again, I'm talking about getting in my own way. And so, we're all usually in our own heads. It's usually our mindsets that keep us from doing some of this stuff, especially when it comes to networking. So cool. All right. Anybody else got any other questions?
Yeah, I was just going to kind of piggyback on what Brandon was talking about. I mean, I've met a lot of great recruiters, a lot of great hiring managers, and there's been quite a few times that I've got other people in my network that I feel would be a good fit for them or for a new role that pops up, and kind of make that referral. So I think that kind of keeps those doors open with those recruiters and hiring managers that, hey, this person sent me somebody that was really good. So,
Yeah.
it's I just feel like we're all out there to help each other.
Absolutely. If you can help other people first, that's huge, right? Because whether we want to acknowledge it or not, we all want the scales of karma to balance out in the universe. And I'm not a super like woo-woo type of universe thing, but we have this natural inclination as humans to want to reciprocate. So if somebody helps you, you have this feeling, maybe subconsciously, that like, I got to do something for them. Now, you're not trying to build up this book of favors that people owe you, right? That's not why you're doing it. You're doing it because you're like, I want to help people because I like helping people. And look, it always feels good to help somebody. It always feels good to be the one that's like, oh yeah, I connected these people and things worked out. I love doing that. And I think most people do like doing that. And I don't do it because I'm like, now they owe me and I'm going to collect. I do it because I want them to be successful and I want to help them. But you do that, and other people are just going to be waiting for the day they can help you. Or they're going to be like, what can I do? What can I do to help you? What's the little thing I can do? And so that's if you come at it with that, it usually is like, makes you feel less awkward about connecting. It makes you feel less awkward about networking. And then when people will be saying, what can I do for you? You don't even have to ask, right? You don't have to pitch yourself. You don't have to say that you're like, oh yeah, I want to meet this person, or I want to meet this kind of person. I want to meet somebody, one of these companies. They're asking you what they can do, and then they're going to kind of go out of their way to make it happen. So that's usually how, when people are like, things are awkward, I don't know how to do this, networking is weird. When you try to start get into that giving mindset and doing that, it really kind of takes away a lot of that awkward feeling, I find.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah.
Greg, can you expand on that? So I think that's a great point. Like, what are some things that we can give, I guess? So I know like connections, but as I'm like reaching out, like what else can I offer?
Yeah. So before I get into that, just to kind of give you context, right? Because this is a concept I'll talk about. You'll hear me talk about if you read my newsletters or do anything like that. They did an experiment, like, and you've probably been to an Asian restaurant where they give you a fortune cookie at the end of the meal with the bill, or another restaurant that gives you a mint or something like that. And they actually did a study that in those restaurants where they give that tiny little gift, so to speak, with the bill, people tip the wait staff more than in restaurants where they don't do that. So they've like proven that is a gift. You don't think about it, but it's like they're giving you something for free. It's tiny, right? It's a fortune cookie. Like how much does a fortune cookie cost them? Like a penny or two, right? By the time you get them all made. And yet it drives higher tipping because you want to reciprocate and you want to give them something. And you don't even think about it. Like I never thought about that till I like heard about this study, and it's in a book called Influence. Robert Cialdini is the author, and he talks a lot about this. And this is the principle of reciprocity. I tell you that because most people think when they're giving people something, it has to be big in order to get them to reciprocate. And the fact is, it doesn't. You're not going to give them a fortune cookie, but I typically tell people to think about the acronym AIR, so AIR, so advice, introductions, or recommendations. So advice might be like, hey, you're working on this problem at work. I came across this. Here's what I did. Or, hey, if I were in your shoes, here's what I would do. Now, you're not just kind of like, you're listening to what they're working on. This is why it's important to listen in these conversations first, because you want to know what they're struggling with or what their challenges are. So you're listening for what it is, and you're like, oh, well, here, if you'd like, here's kind of my take, or here's what I would do, right? Just giving them your advice or your ideas is one thing you can do. If you're talking to them and they're talking about, well, I really need to meet this person or that person, Shahir, for you, right? As you're building your business, who can you introduce them to, right? Like what introduction can you make? And you want to handle introductions tactfully, meaning you want to make sure both people want to connect, but you can introduce them to somebody. And an introduction is just an email, right? It's like, hey, Brandon, Shahir is this person who does this and this and this. And Shahir, Brandon is this person that does this and this. I think you guys have some overlap, some good, you might be able to learn something from each other. I'll let you guys take it from here. That's an introduction, right? Or a recommendation, like a book, a podcast, an article, some posts you saw on LinkedIn, like something that's like related to what the person is working on. If you can give them something like that, that's enough, right? So a lot of times people are like, I don't have anything to give. You're probably thinking too much. You're trying to give like something too big. So make it smaller and think about what you can give to people, because people will, whether they realize it or not, be like, oh, that was cool. I got that from Brandon. Yeah, I'd be happy to help Brandon out. So those are some just ways to think about it. But the key is before you do that, right? That's why this step is called listen and give. You've got to listen to what they're doing. You got to listen to what they're working on. You got to listen to what's going on in their life. You got to listen to what they're challenged with. You got to listen, and you might have to ask some questions to get there, right? But when you're doing that, you're listening so that you can think about what you can give to them that's going to be valuable to them. Does that help?
It does. Thank you.
Okay. Cool. All right. What else? We're coming up on the top of the hour here, so probably got time for one more if there is one more. Otherwise, I can wrap it up.
Yeah, so it's not really a question, but just once again piggybacking on what you were saying, I've got another connection on LinkedIn, and I know one of the things that she always says that if somebody's going to help you or vice versa, it's human nature that you want to help the other person in return without them asking for it or you asking for it. It's human nature, so maybe it's the karma thing,
Well,
so
yeah, absolutely. I think it's more that most of this, what we're talking about is basic human interaction and communication. Okay, we call it networking, but it's really just how do you interact with other people and help them and, get into what I like to call a mutually beneficial relationship where you're both helping each other. And so if you're thinking about it like that, it tends to make it a little, again, less awkward. So,
yeah.
I'm curious. My question for you guys, is this helpful? Is this been helpful? Have you learned anything? Is this, something that you're like, yeah, this is great? Or you're like, oh, okay, that was fun. I got on this call with a few people for the last hour and, it was a spot on my calendar. But, what,
I think it's helpful.
Okay.
Number one, it's just a lot of good, valuable information in today's session. And sometimes I just think it's good to be with other people that are going through the same thing, so you don't feel like you're the only one feeling that way, or being that introvert and not
Yep.
knowing what to do. And it's just I find it helpful.
Yeah, great. Awesome. Cool.
Yeah,
All right.
Greg,
Yeah.
we are going to have this event on every Wednesday.
No, I was planning on doing this every Wednesday. I usually do this monthly. But if you want to follow me on LinkedIn, I have my newsletter that I put out once a week. And I also have like a community where I do like chat-based questions. So like people can, ask questions in the chat. I'm doing through the end of September, that's free. That's actually a paid community, but like I'm doing a trial. So if anybody's interested in getting in the trial through the rest of September, I can send you guys the link. So yeah, like the main thing is follow me on LinkedIn or, subscribe to my newsletter. And that's where like all the other sort of events and stuff that I do are usually listed.
Perfect.
Okay, cool. All right. Well, thank you guys so much for getting on, spending this time with me. I enjoy talking about this stuff. I could talk about this stuff all day. And let me know if you have any other questions. Feel free to reach out to me through LinkedIn individually, and we can keep chatting. So always here to help people get better at networking.